Fall at Equestria the Chrysalis, Chapter 21, Part 3.
I didn't really give a shit about any of that, but he did. And I knew that was how I could really hurt him. Broken bones weren't shit. He had taken so much from me, so I was gonna take everything from him.
Her hoof slammed against her breastplate.
I took the armor that he was so proud of, wore it while I hacked away at his flanks until there wasn't a trace of his cutie mark. I told him that I was going to wear that armor, and I was going to be the scariest motherfucker in the wasteland. So that whenever some pony saw that armor, the only pony that they'd think of was me. I told him that I was taking everything that he built up and burning it to the fucking ground. That I was gonna go out there, kill his entire fucking gang, kill every raider boss that he'd ever had dealings with, hell, kill every pony out there who even knew his fucking name. By the time I was done, there wouldn't be a single pony who even knew he existed. He wasn't gonna have his immortality. I wasn't just gonna kill him, I was going to destroy him. And he screamed and flailed all the way to the end, and I was halfway through gutting him when he finally passed out.
She shook her head, a quick, rough motion that rattled the armor plates, and took a few slow, deep breaths before continuing.
And yeah, I could've just left, or taken over, or any of that shit. He was dead, after all. Like I said, I don't buy into that philosophical Brahmin shit. But I had a rule, ever since my first day as a raider. When I make a threat, I always follow through. And he knew it. So I walked out of the roost, wearing the old boss's armor covered in his blood, and I killed every single motherfucker in that camp. I hung them all around the place, pissed on their corpses, and set the whole place on fire and walked off.
She fell into silence again, just breathing as she glared at the same spot in the dirt. I remained still and silent, waiting for her. Eventually she huffed out a sigh and shook her head.
So? Yeah. That's how it all happened.
I felt as if she were prompting me to speak, so cautiously I hazarded a quiet question.
And that's why you're killing raiders now? Instead of being one?
She gave a snort, cracking a smile.
No, that's just why I killed those raiders. That was years ago. Now I just kill them because it's fun.
As the silence stretched on, I hazarded another question.
If you don't mind me asking,
I said, hoping I was neither overstepping nor coming across as insensitive.
Why did you tell me all of this?
Sickle shrugged.
I don't know. It's like, I guess I still wanted to do something for you, and you've been asking all these fucking questions, so I figured this was better than smashing your face in. Besides, I already told you I killed my last friend. Figured I'd give you the rest of the story.
I stared up at her, and to my surprise, I felt myself slowly starting to relax.
Thank you.
She grunted.
Could I ask one more question?
She grunted again.
If your name isn't really Sickle, then what is it?
Her jaw tensed ever so slightly.
That is my name. And before?
She sat silently for a moment, frowning, but eventually answered.
It's just shortened for another nickname.
She gave a quiet huff before cutting off my next question.
Popsicle.
I blinked.
Popsicle? Yeah, it's...
She paused, tensing up a little, and then slowly began to relax again.
It's what my mom nicknamed me.
She took a slow breath and started talking again.
She made ice cream. I know, it seems like the dumbest fucking thing to do in the wasteland, but for a little filly, it was great. She found this little compressor in some ruins and slapped together this crude freezer. Made treats for me and my sis. It was hard to find the ingredients for ice cream, but anytime we found some canned fruit or juice, or even some old sodas, she'd just mix it into some water and freeze it up, and we'd get popsicles. So whenever she decided that we got a treat, she'd call out like, "Berry Popsicle!" and I'd come running. Before long, it was just Popsicle. She joked I responded to it better than my real name, so she started calling me that.
She finished with a shrug.
Berry.
Sickle froze, and for a moment I was gravely concerned that I had stepped too far. Then she sighed.
Yeah.
She said, her voice tight.
That's what my mom named me. Strawberry Shake.
I'd like to thank my training and experience as an infiltrator in giving me the skill to keep a straight face, even as my mind teetered between boggled skepticism and hilarity over the utter absurdity of it all. I'm certain neither of those reactions would have been welcome, so instead, I stared silently, responding only with a wary nod. Sickle huffed, then stood with a clatter of metal.
Anyway, enough of this shit. Got a job to do.
She raised a hoof to walk off, then stopped. She set it down again and turned her head to stare right at me.
You tell any pony else any of this, and I'm stomping your ass.
I quickly nodded again.
I won't say a word.
She stared at me for a couple more seconds before giving a sharp nod.
Good.
Then she started walking again.
Sickle?
Part of me immediately regretted speaking up, but I knew if I didn't, then I'd probably never say what I wanted to say. Sickle stopped and looked back at me, and I, having committed myself, spoke again.
Since we're having a bit of a heart-to-heart here...
She snorted at the phrase, which gave me a moment of pause, but I pushed on.
What almost happened last night? That wouldn't have happened if you were sober.
She grimaced, staring at me for a long moment before finally speaking again.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
I nodded.
Good. I just wanted to make sure that you were considering that.
Then I stood, approaching her. Outwardly, I did my best to remain calm and focused. I stopped right in front of her. Then, with a quick breath, to steal my nerves, I reached up with a hoof and thumped it firmly against the center of her chest.
Because if you ever get so drugged up that you try to rape some pony like Starlight, I will stop you.
Her head had drawn back, seemingly surprised by my sudden assertiveness. Then it lowered again, glaring silently at me. For my own part, I lowered my hoof to the ground and stood there, appearing firm and defiant, while inside, I desperately hoped that I understood her as well as I thought I did. Slowly, a smile spread across her muzzle, an eerie sight of scarred lips and bared teeth. I fought back a tremble as she chuckled, but it wasn't the angry, eager chuckle that I feared. She actually sounded pleased. Good, she said with a nod, then turned to continue walking. Let's go. I completely failed to hide my breath of relief and turned to follow alongside her. I only made it a few seconds in before frowning.
I hope you didn't take that as encouragement, as if it meant that you didn't have to worry because I'd watch your back and make sure that you didn't do anything that you might regret because— Whisper? She rumbled, turning her head to smirk at me. You're talking too much again. I shut up and nodded, and we continued on in silence. Dusty and Emerald were waiting out front when we returned. Emerald looked almost unrecognizable. The green shopkeeper was clad in rugged full-body barding, which I'm pretty sure had been hanging up in her shop before. A magical energy rifle, one of Arclight's designs by the looks of it, was slung across her back, with a regular pistol holstered at her side. Large saddlebags were supplemented by additional packs on her back. Several folds of thick tan cloth hung around her neck, along with a pair of goggles. If she were to don the goggles and wrap the cloth around her head, the only part of her that would be visible would be her tail. She looked as well equipped and ready to go as any of the rest of us. Dazzle was there too, clad in her heavy barding, but unlike Emerald, she looked particularly agitated. It's still stupid,
Dazzle was saying, gesturing wildly with a forehoof.
I'm sorry, Emerald, but it is.
Oh, wonderful, Sickle grumbled, pausing for a moment to latch her muzzle back into place before continuing on. Despite Dazzle's apparent frustration, Emerald was smiling calmly.
I understand your concern, Dazzle, but I'm still going. I've hid behind these walls for too long, but there's a lot of good to be done out there.
Dusty sighed, and looked over as we approached, giving a weird shake of his head.
Then why don't you want me coming too?
Dazzle demanded.
Cause I'm sure as hell not gonna sit on my tail when you go out there trying to get yourself killed.
Emerald stepped up, silencing Dazzle's protests with a hug.
I've got some very capable ponies watching out for me, hun. I'll be as safe as I can be outside of these walls. But if something does go wrong, and those raiders decide to come after Gemstone, the ponies here will need you.
It took a couple of seconds before Dazzle stopped resisting and relaxed, wearily raising a hoof to return the hug. Her voice was considerably quieter, and if we hadn't walked up beside Dusty already, we might not have heard it.
They need you too. I appreciate the sentiment,
Emerald said, giving a squeeze.
But I think you'd all manage fine.
She released, drawing back just enough to look Dazzle in the face. She raised the hoof, gently touching the younger mare's cheek.
Don't worry, I fully intend to come back. But even if I knew I wouldn't, I'd still go. There are ponies out there who need our help, and we shouldn't shy away from helping them just because it's dangerous. Even if something bad were to happen to me, goddesses forbid, don't you despair. One should never regret giving something to help their fellow ponies. Putting others before ourselves. That's how we beat the wasteland. You remember that, you hear?
Dazzle's expression slackened, and she stared back at Emerald for several seconds before swallowing. She gave a slow, almost timid nod.
I will,
she quietly replied, blinking. I think she was near tears. As for myself, my ears had perked up, and I watched Emerald closely. Something was wrong there. She patted Dazzle on the shoulder and stepped back.
No, you go run along. We'll go find that family and we'll be back before you know it.
Dazzle reluctantly left, casting a couple of glances back our way as she made her way back to the gate. Emerald watched her go with a soft, almost motherly smile. I was surprised when Sickle stepped forward to stand beside Emerald. She rumbled, but kept her voice quiet.
You know they're already dead, right? Oh shit, Sickle, come on!
Emerald drew in a breath and sighed.
Probably.
Her smile wavered, slipping for a moment before holding strong.
But it doesn't change anything.
Sickle's armor rattled as she shrugged. As Dazzle climbed the stairs to the wall top over the town gate, Emerald turned back to us.
Okay then. Dusty's already made sure that I have the proper supplies and equipment to take care of myself. Mostly I'll stay out of your way, but if you need any aid, just ask. I have extra supplies for any ponies that we find, plus all the medical supplies I had in stock. You already traded for most of what I had, but I scrunched up a few magical laced bandages. All of it's free if you need it.
You sure you're gonna be able to carry all of that? Dusty asked. We can have Sickle carry some if you need. Sickle grumbled.
Ain't your fucking pack mule! Thank you,
Emerald said, nodding to Dusty.
I think I'll manage. I try to keep in shape, but it's been a long time since I've done any traveling. I guess we'll see.
Straps were tightened and equipment was checked. Finally, Dusty raised his rifle, pulled back the bolts, peered into the chamber, and let it slam shut, chambering around. Okay, he said, giving a final nod to us. Let's go. I mimicked his actions, and then we were walking. The gate opened and we passed through it, while Dazzle watched us pass below her with a sad expression. But mostly, I watched Emerald and waited. Now when Whisper's wondering about something not being right, I wonder exactly what it is. Certainly can't be good though. Anyway, let's get on to our very good donators. Top donators are 630, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, and Only One Thing. Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin Rollins, CrazyKiller557, Stu Hex, Will, Omicron Lyrae, Chris, Twinkie, Dospo, Delta Omega, Jack Hadge, Runseth9852, Madman Stan, Leslie Prickett, Drake Lovedragon, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, Langa12, Sorcerer Constantine, Hudzaza, Conver, and many more spectacular people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.